Hello and welcome. I'm Kathleen Peddicord. I'm the founder and president of Live and Invest Overseas. Welcome to my Retired Overseas podcast. My guests today are a couple, Joch and Jeff Woodruff, who retired to Portugal in March of 2020, which you will remember was a very dramatic time in world history. And so as a result of their really impressive and inspirational story of when and how they pushed ahead with retiring overseas, in my mind, this couple has become the standard bearer for the idea that should be, if you want to retire overseas, there should be nothing holding you back. You shouldn't let anything get in your way. And there's no better time than right now to retire overseas, no matter when right now is, even if right now is the start of a global pandemic that is going to close borders around the world and shut the whole world down. If there's a will, there's a way. And these guys prove that. So welcome, Jeff and Joch, and you join us from your home in Portugal. Where exactly are you guys, to give everybody a reference?
So we live in a little beachside town called Perafita. We're exactly 5 kilometers west of the Porto International Airport. So we're about 17 kilometers northwest of the city of Porto, and we absolutely love it. It's great because this is kind of like a bedroom suburban community. We're the only Americans in the neighborhood, so it really gives us that immersion experience where we really have to work on our Portuguese. Thankfully, the younger generation here is really good about the bilingual with the English and Portuguese.
So you all made your move from, where did you move from in the United States?
We lived outside of Sacramento, California. Jeff worked for the state of California, so that's sort of where you end up in your careers with the state of California.
Is the state capital, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So you were both in Sacramento?
Yes, except for what we ended up doing was after we sold the house, which sold very quickly, we spent 3 months living in Las Vegas, Nevada, establishing Nevada residency, because our tax accountant warned us that the state of California, no matter what kind of residency we had outside of the United States, California would chase us for the rest of our lives for state income tax.
That was very good advice. That's a great tip, that the state you move from matters exactly from a tax perspective.
We had no property or anything in California anymore, so we just didn't think it was sensible to keep paying the state income tax for the rest of it.
Exactly. Okay, so you made your move to Portugal. You had been thinking that you were going to move to Portugal in retirement for some long time, I believe. This was not an idea that arrived overnight.
Oh, definitely. My family living overseas was something that was not unusual at all. I had an aunt who raised her entire family in England. I had an uncle who lived for 5 years in Japan. I had another aunt who retired to San Miguel de Allende. So
in Mexico.
It was not anything unusual. But I discovered Portugal in 1979 when I was part of a 12-member group from the State Department that came to work with the new young democratic government of Portugal on developing their tourism industry, and spent 2 weeks in Portugal, fell in love. I mean, absolutely could not believe what I was experiencing. And so at the closing banquet, everybody was giving toasts and saying thank you to all of their friends. And I stood up and surprised myself by crying and saying, "Mark my words." And I said it out loud, "I'll be back. I plan to retire here." And kept telling that story for the next 40 odd years. And Jeff had heard the story every Thanksgiving for about years. Yep.
So, all right. So what are your favorite things now that you are well settled? You're in your 5th year being in Portugal. What do you just love about your new lives there?
It hasn't changed for me since 1979. It really is the people. I mean, it just reminds me of what it was like as a kid in a tiny little town on the northern Minnesota Canadian, almost at the border. So we were almost another country in and of itself. But all of the kids that I grew up with were from immigrant families. Their parents either were born in Europe and came to the US or born right after the grandparents arrived in the US.
Mm.
And so all of the grandparents that were in charge of us kids spoke different languages. They didn't speak English. And
Oh, how awesome. How cool.
and that Portugal still is much like that. The emphasis is on family first and foremost. Everybody knows everybody else. Everybody takes care of everybody else. Everybody will keep an eye on somebody else's children if they're about to get into trouble. And second is more your friends and your lifestyle. Third and maybe lower down on the list is job and career. I mean, it honestly is true. However, the Portuguese are very, very industrious and will work very, very hard. But when it's time to stop working, they let go of it. And that, I think, is just an absolutely amazing way to live. And then, the healthcare here is so much better than in the US. So I find that that's another huge plus. But I have to admit, I go back to my creature comforts. I love the food. I love the wine. I love the desserts. I mean, it really is a great place to be living out the rest of your life.
So at this point, you guys are settled. You know what your priorities are, what you want to spend your money on. How is your cost of living now compared to what it was in California?
Well, I guess we were intent upon downsizing to begin with as we were getting ready to start moving or thinking about retirement in California. We'd already dropped one car. We were down from 2 cars to 1 car. But the best way to describe it is that we are actually spending now, 5.5 years later, 1/4 of what we were spending in California 5.5 years ago before we left.
And before all the inflation happening in the United States.
Yeah. And we're comfortable. We're not uncomfortable. From time to time we'll grumble and growl and say, I know we better wait until next month or the month after for that. But so it is significantly less money to be living where we are living.
Well, that's dramatic. And that's impressive because, Portugal offers a very high standard of living. So it's, as you're describing, it's not as though you've moved to a very developing world situation where to say we're living on a quarter of what it cost us to live in the United States can be, well, maybe you take that for granted, but Portugal is the developed world for sure. I would say, in many ways, it's the best of European living, which generally people worry is too expensive. But so that's a great reference point.
And I think people will find that many things here are significantly less expensive. Entertainment. We love to go to it's called the Casa de Música, the performance space in Porto, where they have the symphony and a lot of the concerts. I love the festivals here. We love going to the festivals. Those are free unless you buy food and concessions. But, a lot of stuff is free or low cost here. Food is low here. Medicines, healthcare is very affordable. It's just so nice.
So, all right, what don't you like about your new life? What bothers you, or do you downright think that just doesn't make any sense to me? I don't understand that.
Well, up until recently, the bureaucracy. But I'm happy to announce that Joch and I, thanks to João Gil-Figueira, are preparing to do 2 very important things here next month as our residency needs to be renewed. The first thing we're doing right now is preparing to apply for permanent residency, which we can do as soon as the beginning of next month. The second thing we're planning on doing is applying for permanent residency, all being citizenship. I'm sorry, all while being supported by João Gil-Figueira and his firm. That's why we're on a bit on a tight budget, because this is not cheap, but it's not incredibly expensive, but it's not cheap either.
Right. Well, congratulations. So you're going to acquire Portuguese passports.
Right. That's the goal.
But they're in the legislature arguing right now about changing that application wait period from 5 years to 10 years. So if they change it before we get our application in, he might have to wait another 5 years. But
and
if it is, it is.
And that's what I'm talking about, the bureaucracy. The laws are always changing here. Right now, there's a big debate about raising the ceiling from 5 years to 10 years. And that's where I really, really recommend to your viewers and to folks everywhere, if you're considering moving to Europe, get yourself a good immigration lawyer, because
use the professionals.
Are always changing.
All right. What tips so you guys are settled and you're there for the long haul. You have all the attributes that I think are required to make a great success of a move like this, which is an open mind, an open heart, a sense of humor, self-resourcefulness, flexible thinking, and the ability to not be dissuaded when things don't go as planned. You make a new plan, and to not be, overwhelmed by challenges, because there will be challenges. So we've talked about a number of important things, but would you have any other tips for thinking of following in your footsteps in Portugal or anywhere?
Well, I definitely think the first and most important thing is to put together a list of your priorities before you even start thinking about looking for where you want to go. Even if you've got the dream like I had of Portugal, I think it's important to have a list of priorities of what's important in my lifestyle. Wouldn't you say?
Yes. And not to be sounding like an advertisement, but I really can't stress enough, please use the resources that are available. For example, if you get a chance, go to one of these international conferences, get information, get contacts, make connections, empower yourself with information so that you can make an informed decision.
Yeah, that's a great point. I think you need to get on a plane at some point. You start with a lot of thinking, and I agree completely with the idea. You start with introspective thinking. What's important to you? What do you want your life to look like? This is a big move. We've made the point. It comes with work, it comes with challenges, it comes with expense and cost. So at the end of all of that, you want to end up with a life you're happy with, the life you've dreamt about. So be clear in your mind what that looks like. What is that going to require? Go ahead.
And then I strongly recommend go to where you're thinking of going and live like a local for a little bit of time. Check it out.
Yeah, like you've said, Kathleen, in many of your presentations, get your boots on the ground.
Exactly.
Yeah.
A lot of this can be spreadsheeted and should be spreadsheeted, and you'll find loads of resources online to help you do that, as you guys are saying. But then at some point, you need to get on a plane. And I do really recommend that you get on a plane and spend time in the country, in the company of resources, spend some focused time with resources who can help you in your move. And that is the idea of our conferences.
And that would be the next point, is please utilize the services of professionals.
Yeah, get the support of professionals.
Vetted professionals, because one of the things we're seeing here in Portugal, as well as many of the other countries that are becoming desired destinations, is you'll have hacks that try to con you into hiring their services, and they'll help you only so far, or they only go, they don't do quite the good job that vetted professionals will do.
Yep.
Yeah, that's very good advice. All right. I think we're going to wrap it up there, unless you guys have any other final words of wisdom or anything you want to share with our listeners.
Well, I strongly recommend that the last thing of that list is remind yourself to stop looking back. Just keep your eyes moving forward. Every time I get nostalgic about something back in the United States and start thinking, I wish, Jeff says, why are you looking back so far? Come on, let's stay in
there. That's great advice. Look forward. Yeah. And we tell the story of, because we've heard this over the years, but so many versions of this, and one that stands out because it's kind of funny, but it really makes the point. I knew someone long ago in Panama who had retired to Panama, been living there for years by this time. And every time I saw him, he would complain. He was constantly complaining. And one of his regular complaints was the hamburgers there in Panama were not as good as the hamburgers in Chicago, where he came from. And I thought, after all this time, all these years later, you're complaining about the hamburgers. Maybe focus on what's here in front of you in Panama and what's, what you do love about your life. So it's a really good tip. Don't let yourself become distracted by things that are different. Maybe you don't like this as well as you liked the version of it you knew back home, but those are small little distractions in the scheme of things.
I think it's very human to look back and to be nostalgic and to think about those things. But oh my goodness, there's so many wonderful things. If I'm doing that all the time, I'm going to miss all the wonderful things that are right in front of my nose. And so,
exactly.
Yeah.
All right. Well, good luck, you guys, with your naturalization process. I really hope you get in under the wire and you're able to get your passports. I know you'll keep us updated. And we're in touch with Jeff and Joch all the time. They're part of the family at Live and Invest Overseas. So thank you again for your time here, for sharing your very inspirational story. I'm sure our listeners have appreciated. I know I have. We'll talk to you again soon. Thank you to everyone who joined us today for this Retired Overseas podcast. I'll be in touch again next month. Take care.
Ciao, ciao.
Bye, you guys.